This is going to be Now Here, an audio history, a reading of the Free Encyclopedia, treated as a podcast if you have to treat it as anything, information regarding the very great English rock group, The Wedding Present. Showcased here is their 1987 album, George Best, an absolute masterpiece of guitar pop brilliance. And here we go. The Wedding Present are an English indie rock group formed in 1985 in Leeds, England by members of the Lost Pandas. The band has been led by vocalist and guitarist David Gedge, the band's only constant member. Closely linked to the C86 scene, the band has charted a total of 18 singles in the top 40 of the UK singles chart, including a historic run of 12 singles, one for each month in 1992, which tied Elvis Presley's record for most top 40 hits in a single year. Now that's very interesting and impressive, but we'll get to why that was exactly. The band has its origins in the Lost Pandas, which folded in 1984 when Janet Rigby, the drummer for the band, left following the departure of guitarist Michael Duane. David Gedge and the Lost Pandas bass player Keith Gregory decided to continue the band, renaming it The Wedding Present. The name was jointly conceived by Gedge and his girlfriend at the time, as they're both avid fans of The Birthday Party, and it was an homage to their favourite band. Birthday Party, it's pretty good stuff. It's Nick Cave's best work, honestly. I've always thought that The Wedding Present was an inappropriate name for a pop band, more like a poem or a book or something, and therefore quite attractive to me. I've also always been fascinated by weddings. Gedge and Gregory recruited an old schoolmate of Gedge's, Peter Soloka, to play guitar and auditioned a string of drummers, including John Ramsden and Mike Bedford, with whom they recorded a demo tape before settling on Sean Charman. The band played at clubs and bars as they prepared for the recording of their first self-financed single. Go Out and Get 'Em Boy was chosen over early favourite Will You Be Up There. Charman felt somewhat insecure about his drumming abilities, and so the A-side features drumming by hired hand Julian Sauer. Charman does, however, play drums on its B-side. The single was released on the band's own Reception Records label, with distribution through Red Rhino. Two more singles followed that did well on the independent charts, helped by veteran BBC Radio 1 DJ John Peel, who was one of their first champions. He invited them to do a radio session. 3 songs from the session are included on the 1988 compilation Tommy 1985 to 1987. The entire session had already been released as an EP in 1986, starting a long collaboration. By the time the band started work on their debut album, a number of independent and major record companies showed interest, but the band declined all offers and decided to keep releasing their material themselves. The album was released in 1987, entitled George Best, after the well-known Northern Irish football player. It was produced by the band and Chris Allison. Upon its release, the album was critically acclaimed, and the band was soon classified, with some of their peers, as members of the shambling or C86 scene, a categorization that they vehemently denied, although they were featured on the original C86 compilation. Musically, the album featured fast-paced rhythm guitar. Lyrically, apart from a few excursions into social critique, All This and More, and politics, All About Eve, Gedge's main concerns, which would become his trademark, were love, lust, heartbreak, and revenge. Soon after the release of George Best, the early singles and radio sessions were compiled and released as Tommy 1985 to 1987. When Soloka, who has Ukrainian roots, started fooling around with a Ukrainian folk tune during one of their Peel sessions, the idea rose to devote some of their radio time to recording their versions of Ukrainian folk songs, encouraged by Peel. To this end, 2 guest musicians were involved, singer-slash-violin player Len Liggins and mandolin player Roman Remains, and 3 Peel sessions were recorded with Gedge temporarily limiting himself to playing rhythm guitar and arranging the songs. Between the recording of the first and the second Ukrainian session, Charman was fired from the band. His replacement was Simon Smith, who remained the band's drummer until 1997 and for a long time was, next to Gedge, the only other stable factor in the shifting lineups. The band planned on releasing 8 cuts from the Ukrainian sessions on a 10-inch LP, and an initial batch was pressed when Red Rhino went into receivership. Rather than trying to find a new distribution company, but the band decided to fold their Reception label altogether and sign with a regular record company, RCA. Although the band were criticised by some quarters for selling out, under the terms of their contract they were allowed their own choice of producer and singles. They also had the option of releasing any singles rejected by the label independently without breach of contract. The band's new record company bought the initial Reception stock of the Ukrainian record from the band, pressed another batch, and released the record in April 1989, under the name of, I can't pronounce that, meaning Ukrainian John Peel Sessions. The Latin transliteration, I can maybe pronounce that, Ukrainsky Vystupi Vyevana Pila, appeared on the sleeves, spine only. Excuse me. The first proper album that The Wedding Present recorded for their new label was released in the same year, 1989, and reunited them with producer Chris Allison. Bizarro's lyrical themes were largely the same as before, and the songs featured the same free chord structures, but its production values had increased due to a larger recording budget. The album was recorded at Jacob's studio by Steve Lyon and mixed by him and Chris Allison. The album's companion single, Kennedy, provided the band with their first British top 40 hit. In 1989, the band covered the song Box Elder by a then unknown American indie rock band named Pavement. Still unknown in some quarters, though, to be fair. I like Pavement quite a bit. First album's pretty great. Gregory had found Pavement's limited pressing debut single during a trip to the United States, and the Wedding Presents cover inspired John Peel to promote Pavement on his radio show, a key step in Pavement's breakthrough. Seeing that they were growing more popular in the American college radio scene, the band turned towards America for their next project. The band decided to re-record Bizarro track Brassneck with the former Big Black frontman Steve Albini. It was the start of a 2-year collaboration. The next single, Corduroy, and the album Sea Monsters were also recorded by Albini at Pachyderm Recording Studio in Cannon Falls, Minnesota. Melody Maker likened listening to the record to sandpapering your ears. End-of-year readers' polls, however, showed the opening track and lead single of the album, Dalliance, amongst the top of the favourites list. Almost directly after recording the album, the band announced that they had sacked Soloka. His replacement was Paul Dorrington of local band Say Say Fly, also formerly of AC Temple. Soloka teamed up again with Liggins and Remains to form the Ukrainians and continued to blend post-punk with traditional Ukrainian music. In the next year, saw the band release 12 7-inch singles in 1 year. Each single had a limited pressing of 10,000 copies, which all reached the top 30 in the UK singles chart, equaling Elvis Presley's record for the most UK top 30 hits in 1 year. To economise on songwriting, the B-sides consisted of cover versions of songs including Julie Cruise's Falling. That's the theme tune from Twin Peaks, everyone. The singles and their B-sides, produced by various producers such as Ian Browdy, Lightning Seeds, and Jimmy Miller, the Rolling Stones, were collected on 2 albums, Hit Parade 1 and Hit Parade 2. The demand in the United Kingdom for the Wedding Present singles was so high that distributors began poaching them from a separate 5,000 copy stash meant for sale in all other markets to sell in the UK. The Wedding Present had the distinction of having all 12 hit singles to be solely original material, whereas Elvis reached his record through archival reissues. The Hit Parade effectively served as the band's third album under the RCA contract, and the band played Top of the Pops 4 times in the same year. Sea Monsters, Hit Parade 1 and Hit Parade 2 were released in the United States in 1991 and 1992 by New York-based pseudo-indie label First Warning Records. Shortly after the 1992 singles scheme had ended, the band announced they were leaving RCA. Let's keep going for a little while. We'll go to the end of the 90s here. The band spent most of 1993 taking time off, occasionally playing gigs. A stopgap compilation of 3 more archive radio sessions, Peel Sessions 1987 to 1990, was released by Strange Fruit. When they re-emerged in early 1994 with the news that they had signed to Island Records, it was quickly followed by the announcement that Gregory had left the band, due to lack of enthusiasm, and was replaced by Darren Belk. For their next album, The Wedding Present again left for the United States and enlisted Steve Fisk, Screaming Trees, Nirvana. The result was Whatsoy. I'm not sure, I never know how to pronounce that properly. The album songs ranged from warm lo-fi pop, gazebo, big rat, to semi-psychedelic, Velvets-like workouts, click, clack, click, click, Catwoman. No further albums were recorded for Ireland, and the best part of 1995 was spent the same way as 1993, touring, writing new material, no recording. Paul Dorrington decided to quit the band, no replacement was made as Belk doubled on bass and guitar. In the autumn of 1995, The Wedding Present released Sucker, a self-financed single that was sold at their gigs only. It has since been included on compilation albums. Shortly after, the band signed with independent label Cooking Vinyl. The band, still a free-piece, recorded their newly written material and issued the car-themed 6-track mini-album, Mini. Belk played both guitar and bass on the songs. Shortly after releasing the album, Jane Lockie, who had already sung backing vocals on Mini, was announced as the band's new bass player. Belk decided to quit the band and was replaced by Simon Cleve. Both Lockie and Cleve were former members of Say Say Fly, along with Paul Dorrington and Mark Goodham. The band still had material from their sabbatical year and went into the studio again to record Saturnalia. This proved to be the last new material by The Wedding Present for a long time. After playing a number of gigs to support the album, the last one in Liverpool on the 18th of January 1997, the band took a long sabbatical. And I think we'll close it here. Thanks again, friends. Do listen to George Best by The Wedding Present if you're so inclined. I think it's one of the more exciting, affable, enthusiastic, invigorating English guitar pop albums, downstream of post-punk, of that, and then that great jangle scene of the 80s. Good stuff, in my opinion. Thanks again.